your headset to change between channels, Russian and English. Let me introduce myself. My name is Nikolai Kasyanov. I am the Deputy General Manager of Interfax, International Media Group. Today with us we have Ahmed Azimov, the Chairman of the Center of International Strategic Initiatives, Andrea Brimok, the Director of Department of International Digital Solutions, also Interfax International Media Group, Mohammad Shahid Khan, the member of the Board of Directors of the partner co-founder Global Growth and Expansions into ICO-UX. I hope I pronounced it correctly, the name of your company. Dear sir, very well. I hope you can hear me well. Good, great. Samir Mohammad Jamhur, the Executive Director of the new offices of Talal Abu Ghazaleh Global, and Maxim Ignatiev, the Director for GR and Regional Programs for DELO, or Business Group of Companies. The explosive growth of not just Islamic banking, but also Islamic finance and development of Islamic world countries due to the differences between ASEAN countries to Middle East countries and Islamic countries provides for not simply economic development, not just innovative development, technological development, but also the development of the latest tools of finance, latest financial instruments. I remember when young Arab states, due to economic development, felt the need in new instruments for economic development, which won't lead to unrest or religious problems. There was a concept base developed for Islamic banking and Islamic finance. That's what we call it today. Nationalization of own economy, because if a country lacks own financial system, another one will take its place. I mean the Western system, inevitably, and will provide for economic and political dependency. Second is integration into international economy. The financial rules the country abides don't have to correspond to international, but they have to be stable, clear, and understandable for international capital and finance. So Islamic, Arabic countries, Northern Africa, Asian countries, Middle East are developing their own vector models in close interaction with international capital and finance, but on their own terms, also using religious norms and symbols as a basis for their identity. Please allow me to quote you some statistics which will prove the development of international Islamic banking and finance worldwide. All of these indicators are growing fast. According to EY data, despite Islamic banking controlling most Islamic assets, it is growing much faster on the other types of assets. 17.6% growth was shown, which is unprecedented growth rate for economy and asset growth. In 2017, the total volume of Islamic assets was $1.6 trillion, and in 24 it was $2.4 trillion. In 26, it's going to be 2.6. There are forecasts. For 27, the cautious forecasts rise to $2.8 trillion. The number of commercial Islamic banks worldwide is 418 Islamic banks. We also are noting the fast development and rise in interest of traditional Western financial institutions, mostly UK, less US, and other countries. They are opening so-called Islamic windows. For the UK, it became a common widespread practice, opening separate branches for Islamic finance in classic British banks. Islamic banking operates within the largest UK banks HSBC, Barclays, and others. This provides for expansion into Middle Eastern markets and for servicing the growing Muslim communities. 105 countries have financial institutions working. Islamic banks dominate in 5 of these. The competition-wise, UAE, Iran, Qatar, South Asia, Iran, Malaysia represent 28% of the assets of international Islamic banks. Bahrain is also plays a decisive factor in development of Islamic finance. This is general data and statistics, but if we take a bigger look at the problem, we may note that fast development of the economies of the countries which we consider Islamic world, with prevailing Islamic population or Muslim population, exceeds all forecasts, and today is focused not just on the business related to exports and raw materials, but also powerful infrastructural projects. As we note from the UAE experience, important transport projects, infrastructure development projects, construction, not just in the Emirates, but in other Gulf countries. Also in Northern Africa, this process is ongoing. In Islamic countries, Asian countries, Malaysia also have huge projects related to various scientific and technology-based industry sectors. In particular, we see serious growth in the role of innovative business. Within the framework of Islamic finance, we see the development of new methods, such as Islamic securities development. This is also a specific tool of Islamic banking. Financing startups, high-tech companies related to IT development, and other important processes. It also should be noted that the practice and the inherent philosophy of Islamic banking falls well on the highly demanded development models today, such as ESG technologies, because the principles of internal partnerships on which many Islamic finance instruments are based are very well suited to ESG business related to environmental technologies, some powerful socially oriented business models, and others. Today, during our discussion, we are going to discuss, among others, certain tools and instruments, mechanisms being developed today within the system of Islamic banking and financing, or interacting with them. We're also going to mention certain legal models and cases to showcase how it works and how it may work in the Russian Federation and other countries that are interested in Islamic banking or part of the Islamic banking system. Perhaps partners with other countries that already work in this system. And because our sub-agenda includes science and technologies, apart from the main topic of Islamic finance, this whole financial system correlates to scientific development, fundamental sciences, and also applied sciences, and also development of modern technologies, including fintech instruments and industry. And also, as I mentioned, some global economic development trends. Constructing and realizing largest infrastructural projects are among them. Some large governmental governance projects, IP projects, and some serious blocks of various interaction systems that modern business world and economic technological development represents. Now, please allow me to give the floor to Ahmed Azimov, the chairman of the Center of International Strategic Initiatives. He is going to tell us more about the role of Russia in the construction of a fairer financial system and world. Thank you. Good afternoon, dear speakers and dear participants of this session. I'd like to thank the organizers for the kind invitation and opportunity to speak. I didn't expect to go first. Mind you, however, understanding this is an important and interesting subject, and taking into note the fact that the moderator has already outlined some key points, I have a complex job to find the right messages and make the right points. I recall about a year ago at this forum, I was also a speaker during the Sberbank session. It was also dedicated to Islamic finance and the leadership of Sberbank in Islamic finance. The role of Tatarstan in promoting Islamic banking was also mentioned. I had the honor to be present at this Sber session, and also we had Rais Minikhanov attending, who mentioned very important points from Islamic finance, noting that this is not just about the numbers, but about the right of Muslims to enjoy the opportunity to exercise their financial needs within the worldview system. And the year passed. We know that this September, we saw the adoption of a new piece of legislation on experimental adoption implementation of Islamic finance in 4 regions. This project is being successfully implemented and is going to run until September 2024, following which we expect the adoption of a full-fledged legislation implementation about regulation of Islamic finance in Russia. This is extremely important, ladies and gentlemen, because without the regulatory framework and creating a certain legal base, Islamic finance in Russia will not be able to develop. Since it's not just about the legislation, however, about the momentum, the impulse that the international financial community and Muslims worldwide understand and perceive, because we understand that Islamic banking and finance in Russia won't never be implemented without political will, because for 20 to 30 years Islamic banking was marginalized. Not just banking as such, there used to be many stereotypes about Islam, many misconceptions. But today we understand that Islamic banking is not just about religion, but, however, about a stable financial banking system. There is an understanding today that Russia has its key friends and allies in the south and the east. Among Muslim countries, GCC countries also, not one Islamic conference and cooperation organization country joined the sanctions regime. So our friendship is a long-term friendship, and thanks to the words of our president, we're not just friends of the Islamic world, we are its inherent part.
That's why we should accept this fact, and we should realize that we need to take some initiatives to increase integration, and Russian and Islamic banking are the most promising and they are most advantageous for Russia. Talking about Islamic financing, there was a short presentation of them, and this is the system which helps us to use money, not just goods, but actually financial institutions serve as partners. That's why sometimes they're called partner finances, and we believe that this is the way to create a just world. And I think that Russia is quite cautious in being involved in these activities. And I think that we can become leaders in promoting Islamic banking, especially in the context of financial technologies, because Russia has proved that it's one of the advanced countries in developing financial solutions for financial institutions, fintechs. And we should take into account the 30 million population who reside in Russia, and accepting the technological advances developed in Russia, Russia could become the leader in monitoring Islamic financing and modern financial technologies. And also it might help to organize cooperation among Islamic states and introduce Islamic fintech solutions. And we should also move to Africa, to the Middle East, to South Asia and Eastern Asia. And it implies potentially 2 billion people who will use these products, and this is a huge number. And it's a great advantage in this field because there are no serious barriers here. So there is a low barrier for being introduced in this activity, and actually there are huge framework relationship in this field, and I'm sure that Russia should use the opportunity to be part of this. And I repeat once again that this is one of the issues which is being discussed in Russia, why Russia needs this. I think it's required not only to attract Islamic finances from abroad, because the Western markets are closed for us, but actually, even if it doesn't help, we help to create a stable financial framework. We help to integrate Muslims in the financial field, in the financial industry of the Russian Federation, and we start involving the part of the population who didn't use the financial institutes because of their beliefs. And recently I found the message from Dugin, who said that Russians should use Russian banking, interest-free, Islamic banking. So I think that Islamic banking should not be considered only as the banking for Muslims. Actually, it should be for everyone, and it's accepted financial model in the global community, which is built on other principles. We think that these are just principles. They include moral principles, and for us, interest-based banking is not traditional for us. We believe that it's a moral system, and I think that everybody might agree with this, even those who are involved in the system, because it's not focused on creating valuable product and helping redistribute finances and creating something being useful for the community. So there are no such categories in the banking system right now. That's why we believe that we need to take a step in Russia to develop and introduce Islamic financial system in Russia, and it should be more active, and we should take concrete steps, and we should involve not only Muslims. And that's why it's very interesting for me to take part in this session, because the organizers here, not some Islamic organization, but actually Interfax. So I would like to thank them for this session, because I think that it's extremely important. And such platform organized by media, by innovative institutions is more effective, and they can redistribute this information among the community more effectively. and they can play a more decisive role in creating successful examples of using Islamic finances. So I would like to thank you for the organization of this event, and I would be happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much for your kind words, but we don't say goodbye. Actually, we will involve you in our discussion further. So let me ask you a few questions concerning pinpointing problems in Islamic banking. As far as I understand, one of the major problems in Islamic financing and Islamic banking is that it's more expensive. Yes, there are certain problems in insurance and in provision of financial tools, but actually if we talk about partner schemes, given that they are quite pretty and they adhere to be more just, but still they are more expensive for customers. And thus, we don't have interest, which is considered as some tool for looting people, but it means that the price of these services will be higher. That's why if you can express your ideas on this topic, how the Islamic financing and banking systems are coping with this problem, please share your opinion, how you can cope with this, how we can solve this. Today, it is true. It's true because the Islamic financing exists thanks to enthusiasm of private auctioneers, and that's why it's a stereotype that it's more expensive. And though this stereotype still exists, but I think if the government is involved with their financing, in this case, the conditions will be the same as in other banking systems. And this high price which exists, though it's linked to additional regulation principles and norms and creating guarantees, but still this interest is not so high to repel customers. Even a more expensive product is still welcomed by the Islamic audience. Though it's more expensive, but on the other hand, it helps them to decrease risks thanks to the involvement of other parts in this activity. Thus, even if I pay more and I lose something because of the high interest, but still if I lose, I will not be in financial hole. And the banks will not try to take everything away from me, including my house. And I think this system is more just, and these risks are redistributed as well as the revenues are redistributed here. And I can say that banking is not focused only on making one side more rich and the other side suffer because of high prices. And the Islamic Bank is not just an institution where people are united to get revenue. Actually, they have a lot of obligations, and they redistribute the revenues on some Islamic charitable events. And that's why when we talk about Islamic economy, we talk about social Islamic economy here as well. And the Islamic economy in its tradition has a lot of things which develop in details the social and charitable activities. And Muslims are happy to be part of such partnership because they understand that the money which they give away, which could be considered as the revenue of their partners, will be used for good social projects and not just to be pocketed by some bankers. And I think this is harmony here.
I'd like to add to this. So This is essentially, so there's a long answer and a short answer, and I'll go for both. First and foremost, this is a misnomer that Islamic banking and finance is more expensive than conventional counterpart. This was true 15, 20 years ago when it just started, and it is perhaps true in newer jurisdictions at the onset. However, with time, it stabilizes and it becomes at par, both in terms of service, quality, and in terms of the pricing as well. Initially, the idea was that this is the cost of being Muslim, but this no longer holds true. So that's one. Now, why is it that at times it is more expensive or the costs are higher? Inherently, Islamic banking and finance ensures that there are level of checks that are in place, which are not in the conventional counterpart. So in addition to the regular audits that we have in a conventional bank, we have something called a Sharia audit that is done internally by internal team, by an external council of experts, by the central bank, and so on and so forth. So all of this is also embedded. There is additional, a lot of paperwork. So one of the problems of Islamic banking finance when it started was we had a lot of papers to deal with. I think we single-handedly contributed to global warming in terms of financial institutions more than anyone else. And my brother here from the legal side can attest to that. There's so much of offer, acceptance, blah, and so on and so forth. Obviously, with newer technologies, that has gone down. So the point essentially is that despite all of these additional costs, it is not more expensive, and it is at par in most of the countries in the world, actually.
Спасибо за ваше интересное дополнение.
Thank you very much for your comments. I think that here we have an important part of the expressed opinions that, if I understand it right, the system of Islamic banking helps to redistribute what is considered in the Western traditional banking system risks as risks. So thus we redistribute risks between the customers and the banking system among the those who provide guarantees, enterprises and clients, and financial companies involved in this system, but still there are certain reserves. And as our esteemed speaker mentioned, Muslims should support their right to be Muslims. That's the price.
There's no cost of being Muslim.
No cost.
No cost.
Okay, okay.
Then, and in this case, we will not follow the word price. Here, we will ignore it in our case, because if we talk about some other countries, for example, Germany, they pay certain religious tax, church tax, to be part of this community, but it's far from what we're discussing here, but still it's one of the forms of the material confirmation of your right to belong to a certain church, to a certain religious system. And if the system of Islamic banking implies the development of partnership, it's very good. It explains that recently a lot of countries of the Bay, of the Persian Gulf, Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, invest a lot in ecological projects, in the development of human capital, in projects linked to the development of technologies, ESG, and with other technologies of management and other mechanisms which concern social development, the protection of the environment, the development of urban planning and other supports, support of the environment, which is very important for people and for any country. But I think that a vital element and mechanism of the system of banking development is innovative projects development and fintech development, because financial technologies currently determine the existence of huge financial systems and the availability of capital for different layers of the population, use of social networks, and many other interesting things. And I would like to ask Andrei Alexandrovich to share his ideas about the potential development of fintech in Islamic banking. Thank you very much. Could I show my presentation? Please give me a clicker. So we have a notepad and also interpreting, but we still need a clicker. Dear colleagues, I'm happy to present my ideas in front of you. And I agree with my colleagues that fundamentally Islamic banking should not be expensive. Actually, it should be cheaper in comparison to the classic banking, and partnership against the model which is aimed at achieving the highest profit. So we can see that these are different directions. And I think the countries where this Islamic banking is local, it's more cheaper. But for other countries, it might be more expensive because we still use old Western technologies, and we add Sharia technologies, and we try to unite them, and it can increase the price. But I think we can have another approach which will help us to make these products more available for the customers. And in continuation of the idea of the previous speakers, 23% of the population in the world are Muslims, and actually they're quite young, and the share of Muslims will increase, including their industrial potential and other potentials. But still, the Islamic banking share is quite low. It's less than 1%. But in total, in the world, we can see that the growth of financial markets is quite high, but still the Islamic banking share is still quite low. And I think it can increase 20-fold in the future. But still, there are certain challenges. These challenges concern the fact that these technologies sometimes build on the previous technologies. And for example, if interest was used in banking system for 200 years, and if we want to refuse from it, it will be quite costly for us. That's why we should develop certain technology which should be separate, started from the beginning instead of adapting it. And let me tell you about our company and what we have done. Actually, it's not Interfax, it's not just an information agency. Actually, we're also a company. We use scoring and indexes, and a lot of Russian companies use our tools, and we know quite a lot about Russian business, and we can tell the difference between good and bad, and we can do the both things. So we have created a model of the Islamic financial index, which can focus the financial stability of the company without using banking information. It's one of the challenges of the traditional European banking is the fact that they exist quite long, and when some company turns to them to get a loan, they check how previous loans were paid. So it's a certain loop. And if you never used Islamic financing, your partner doesn't know anything about you. And of course, this partner should manage risks. That's why the commission is quite high. But our model is different. It helps you understand what companies feel good and which ones feel less good.
And we should mention that the organizations that are launching new products can use ours or use own to separate the more successful instruments from the less successful. We also use modern technologies. Certainly at the outset, Spark Interfax Media Agency has selected 160 parameters to structure an index with the green zone for long-term stability companies. There are also high-risk and medium-risk companies that need to be looked at. But when we're speaking about uniform attitudes towards all companies, it would be too expensive. What we say is the green zone companies are quite safe to work with without fear of loss. Red zone companies, red-coded companies are a bit of a risk, but medium yellow zone are usually pretty moderate in terms of risk. This scoring was built not based on long-term indicators, because they are non-existent for Islamic banking. Generally, there is no interest rate. We pay a lot of attention not to financial indicators only. It's also about the human capital, about the courts and arbitrage, and about the modus operandi of the company. There are over 160 parameters. There are a few models of AI, and neural networks are used to complement each other in structuring this index. And we used and applied this index in the Russian market based on Russian companies. It may also be adapted on other states. We'd like to invite fintech companies and financial organizations to closer cooperation. We welcome all partners, and our joint challenge is improving the legal and legislative component, but technologies have also must play a part. Traditional Islamic banking countries are easier to work with, and we propose to keep an open mind on how to best improve this process. I think that legal base and support of the government is very important for implementation, because if legislative support is lacking, the companies will certainly incur risks. We need to use a uniform approach. Now, there are also standards that Islamic banking is based on. There is no need to reinvent the wheel. Everything is well understood as to which indexes and which instruments perform best. We have many digital solutions available at Interfax, and we hope that Islamic banking will also be an important contributor to the community. Thank you so much. Andrei, could you please tell us, in your opinion, regarding your work processes, risk in this rating you described is skipped, because in Islamic banking, banking risks are unacceptable, but you still mention the legal risks, such as risks of non-compliance or non-fulfillment of obligations. This I was talking about the risks of company's financial stability. We are forecasting that the company will perform well in 12 months, for instance, and pay well on its obligations. So what we mean is that the company has ordered some goods or services. We forecast that it will most likely pay for this. So these are usual risks of partnership. For example, you find a partner and then you order some products, some wheels for your car, and these are fundamental business factors, not just loans as such, but fulfillment of partnership obligations, you see, meeting its promises and so on. Now, the second question is, now speaking of banking community, European community, there are serious compliance systems in operations. And there are some important risks, current, future, forecasted risks, potential risks. Quite often, some experts from the Western banking community, from the US or European banking community, say that this compliance pressure kills the business. It becomes a serious pressure on many industry sectors, on the financing, on everything. In your opinion, is Islamic banking system compliant with these compliance standards? And also, how would this possible rating or index, how would it potentially interact with compliance, or there is no compliance interaction? Well,
Ну вот буквально дословно.
Ну да, да.
Да, поэтому есть
That's why there are compliances with the local context, and also there are compliances in banks with the Basel. So we should take this into account. We also talk about money laundering, and there are a lot of different compliances, but if we talk about Islamic financing, there is Sharia compliance. But actually it should exist, although we don't always mention it. And if we talk about regulation, I think it's evident that Islamic financing should definitely be regulated by Islamic compliance, but it's not evident that they should be regulated by other types of compliances. So thus the regulatory agencies should focus on creating 2-3 new levels, which they should be excluded from the operation of these tools. Otherwise, we will only add limitations in the future. If you have any questions from the audience, please ask your questions. Mr. Mohammed Shahid Khan, so your topic concerns innovations in Islamic financing using new tools. That's why we have reached this topic. Could you please comment on what was said before and also add what you think about this? And I think there could be quite interesting ideas. For example, artificial intelligence, which is now being actively used in financial technologies. And what do you think about the system of using artificial intelligence? How does it correlate with the topic which we discussed with the Islamic banking and finance and other approaches? And also, how innovations in Islamic banking and refinancing could be used, how are they supported, and how they're going to be developed?
Number 2, hello. Hello.
Hi, is it working? Okay, cool. May I just stand up? نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم الحمد لله رب العالمين أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. This was a prayer by Prophet Moses before he began any speech. So first and foremost, it's a pleasure to be here in Kazan again. The first conference I was here was almost 15 years ago. I was honored to be a part of it at that time. Subsequently, through the years, I've had the privilege and honor to being here with you all. So thank you, Moderator, Mr. Nikolai, and to Interfax as well for organizing this. And very pertinent, interesting conversations we've had so far. Before I delve into innovation, let me just touch upon the conversation that we were having on Sharia compliance and the cost of compliance. So in addition to everything else that a bank faces in terms of compliance with the Basel, with other regulatory stuff, Islamic banking faces the same. In addition to that, it has the Sharia compliance aspect. The Sharia compliance is the license for an Islamic bank or Islamic financial institution to essentially operate. Without Sharia compliance, there is no Islamic banking and finance. That is why people are banking with that institution or working with this institution, because it is in compliance with the rules and regulations as per Islam. So this is the fundamental and most important part. If there is no such thing and an institution is not taking care of it, in that situation, the customers, the money that they earn or the banking transactions that are done are deemed un-Islamic, and any income that is generated is then parked to a separate pool which is then given in charity. I'll just give an example. About a couple of years ago, I was doing an audit, and this was a court case of one customer against a very large Islamic bank in Saudi Arabia. And we're talking hundreds and millions of dollars here of a dispute. And whereby we went in and we audited the transactions and we found out that it was not Sharia compliant in nature. Now, we're talking close to a couple of billions of dollars of principal and tens and hundreds of $1 million of profit component. The entire profit component was waived off just because the bank did not follow the certain protocols when it came to extending that finance over a period of a few years. So again, as I mentioned, the Islamic finance, the compliance to Sharia becomes paramount and important. And it is of utmost importance to keep that in perspective. Now, which brings me to the point of innovation. Innovation is essentially, there's an old saying, innovate or die. If you don't innovate, essentially, you would die. And this is true for individuals, this is true for organizations, this is true for countries, this is true for businesses. So Elon Musk once said, if something is important enough, you do it, despite the odds. And Islamic finance was essentially born from the same concept as well. This was important for Muslims. This is important after gaining independence. I mean, they've had almost 100, 200 years of colonization. Majority of Muslim countries were various colonies of either the French, the British, and so on and so forth. So once they achieved their independence, they started this whole movement of balancing their faith with their finances. And Islamic finance was essentially born. Just to give you perspective, the first Islamic banking and finance as a formal credit course in a university was started in 2001. Before that, there was no such a formal course available. I was actually instrumental in helping develop that in Pakistan for the university. So coming to the conversation of innovate or die, has anyone heard of the name Peter Drucker? Peter Drucker, he was a management guru. Those who studied management or modern management would know that name. He essentially said an organization has only two functions: marketing and innovation. Everything else is just a cost. So that is the two important functions that they should and always focus on. So this is true for Islamic banking and finance as well. Now, when we talk about innovation, innovation comes in, and we see the technological innovation in various fields. One was So what is innovation? What is creativity and what is innovation? Creativity essentially is thinking of something new. That is creativity. Innovation is doing something new. When you put that thinking into practice and you add something new, you could put two old things together, combine them, that becomes innovation. You can create something altogether new, that is innovation as well. So with newer technologies, we see the adoption of, for example, you asked me the question of AI right now. I remember having a conversation with our Sharia scholars. Does everyone understand who and what is a Sharia scholar? Raise of hands, if you do.
No.
No one does? Oh, okay. So it's an Islamic bank, within an Islamic bank, we have experts. One expert or a group of experts is called a Sharia expert. Those who look at Sharia law, and those look at finance, those look at technology, and see does it match and fit the description, the product. Is it in compliance with Islam or not? So they are Sharia experts and they're called Sharia advisors. I had a conversation with Sharia advisors that your job is going to get extinct. And this was about 10 years ago. I said we will have robo-Sharia advisors, whereby we can ask them a question and they can give us a fatwa and an answer. I mean, just 8 months ago, we've had this explosion of ChatGPT. I hope you all know what is ChatGPT. You do? Please raise your hands, those who know. Great. Anybody else has used it? I know in Russia it is sort of banned since the advent of the special operation, but using VPN, you can access it. So this is an amazing, wonderful tool whereby you can have a form of a conversation with the platform and have a dialogue and a conversation using the latest news out there or whatever it is and embed it into the same. Now, I have a presentation as well, and I'll just quickly go through it. There's nothing, okay. So Islamic banking and finance is essentially banking which is in consonance with Islam. Finance which is in consonance with Islam. That is what Islamic banking and finance is. It adopts the conventional best practices. It uses the best practices which is available in conventional modern finance and adds to the element of Islam into it. So just to put a perspective historically, till about the 15th century, interest was frowned upon in every society in the world. Has anyone read the book Merchant of Venice? Do you all know of that book? It was essentially...
And recently in Lombardia, so-called the Lombardian treasury, the northern part of Italy.
Northern part of Italy.
Yeah.
So Merchant of Venice was this book whereby they spoke of that the money lenders would be kicked out in the night time and kept separately in a separate part of town. Why? They were not liked. No one liked the money lenders. It was important that they would need to borrow, but the concept of interest being charged on borrowing was frowned upon. It was an absolute ban on interest till the 12th century. So interest as a concept was frowned upon in Islam, Judaism, Christianity, and in Islam as well. Okay. So in recent years, we see key technologies coming in. We see the technology of blockchain. And by the way, these images on the right, they're all AI generated. 20 seconds it took. I say, I want Islamic blockchain. They put a mosque and a blockchain network there, and I got that. So blockchain technology, essentially, we can eliminate the use of paper altogether. We can make our contracts smarter. And there are self-executable smart contracts which are used. You can perhaps talk about that when you're talking about the legal side of things. Artificial intelligence and machine learning, AI is essentially used all across data gathering, bringing in efficiency in terms of understanding patterns. One thing I must add, as I feel, that AI will replace certain functions, but it will enhance and create our jobs and our lives, make it much better. So the joke of Sharia advisors, they will not go extinct, but the tools that we get using AI, it'll make us faster and more efficient, and they will always require a human touch for the judgment that a machine will not be able to give. So in terms of usages, we see the smart contracts, we see the Sharia-compliant financial products being built around it, blockchain technology, especially when it comes to real estate financing. It is being used. Tokenization of assets. It is essentially being used. And since you're in the fintech, you would see players in that area, both in the Islamic banking side and within the these elements of blockchain as well, who are using and facilitating those the transactions by this technology. As every technology, this has its own challenges as well. But blockchain itself, there is no inherent issue across jurisdictions. But when you talk about tokens, or when you talk about cryptocurrencies, there are certain jurisdictions which are allowing it. For example, the Kingdom of Bahrain, UAE, even the US. In Russia, it is interesting that there is this debate and this going on between the Ministry of Finance and the central bank, whereby the Ministry of Finance is pushing for it and the central bank is resisting it. So far, that is within the gray area. However, this can be and is being used as a gateway to facilitate international trade right now, especially in the realm of the sanctions and the difficulty of moving money outside and bringing money inside and doing commerce with the rest of the world. Thereby, the tokens, the stable currencies are being used and can be used as a way to facilitate trade. We see some of the news. Islamic Development Bank worked with settlement to develop a blockchain price stabilization system, whereby the fluctuations that you see in certain currencies, they created a reserve system working with settlement for the same. We see the beginning of this year, an Islamic coin. They recently raised close to $400 million to create this new coin, Islamic coin, by the Haq network. And they have a good number of advisors on board. This government is on board of UAE, as I believe, or the players behind the government are involved into it. So this is an interesting picture, if you could see, how to confuse machine learning. Okay. Essentially, it optimizes investment decisions as well. It helps in making things much faster and enhancing efficiency, transparency, fairness, accountability, all of that by using modern tools of AI. Enhancing risk management, the ability to look at patterns and decipher patterns. We see some key players. We see Ethis Ventures. We see robo-advisory firms, investment firms. We see the same in research and development institutions, educational institutions using AI to help with dissemination of knowledge. Within digital banks, the world's first Islamic digital bank was MEME by Gulf International Bank. I was fortunate enough to be the core team member to having launched that bank in 2015 in Saudi Arabia. It was the world's first Islamic digital bank and the first digital bank in the GCC. You have Al Barakah Digital, which has gone to Germany, essentially.
Do you use some of these applications?
Do I use some?
Yeah.
MEME, for example, I was instrumental in launching it.
Ah, yeah.
I was personally the core team member that launched that business in Saudi Arabia and in Bahrain. And Wahid Invest, yes, for investments. But if you ask me where would I invest my money, Bitcoins, which is Sharia compliant. So that's the future, Bitcoin. Future trends is for Islamic, essentially innovation is key. For it to survive, for it to be an inclusive proposition, something that, brother, you mentioned was that Islamic finance is not only for Muslims. It is an inclusive proposition. This is for everyone alike. Anyone who believes in fairness, transparency, and equitable contracts gravitates towards Islamic banking and finance. I'll give you an example. In Malaysia, for an Islamic bank, 80% of their customer base was the non-Muslims, was the Chinese community. And the reason why they were working with the Islamic institution were and is because of the fairness in the contracts. I'll just give you a very simple example. If a customer is in default, a consumer, a retail consumer, the Sharia advisors dictate that if he pays back, first pay back the principal of the product which has the highest profit rate that is being charged on the customer. In conventional banks, I remember and I know, they would first clear out the one which is the lowest profitable for them. Just the fairness part, which is dictated as a system in Islamic finance, makes customers come to them, especially when they are in problems and in trouble. So thank you very much. We can continue the dialogue. This was the brief thing I wanted to talk about in terms of innovation.
Спасибо, господин Шахидхан, за ваше интересное.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shakir Khan, for your interesting speech.
В нашей беседе реально опровергаем некоторые... Мы реально в нашей сегодняшней беседе мы опровергаем некоторые заблуждения или стереотипы. Ну, один из стереотипов, например, что, так сказать, исламская среда, в том числе и финансовая, она так...
The Islamic environment is quite conservative. It's too conservative, and that they're trying to avoid any innovation. And the second stereotype is that it's very hard to involve this and combine it with modern innovations and modern technologies like AI and other internet technologies. We can see that this system, the system of fastly growing financial Islamic financing and banking, is actively using modern information technologies of artificial intelligence and many other technologies, and they're trying to offer a wide range of services and possibilities to their customers. And the Islamic financing is developing towards the scientific breakthrough, but still you don't forget about your religious beliefs and basic ideas which actually correlate with the Russian psychology. But modern business also implies major development of management and law development, and it implies the development of legal processes. That's why I'm happy to give the floor to Samer Mohammed Janhour. He will present how intellectual property rights are introduced in Islamic banking.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalam.
I have presentation ready. Let's get my presentation. First of all, I want to thank the organizer for giving me this opportunity. I'm from Jordan. I came all the way just to participate in this event. I work in a company called Talal Abu Ghazali Intellectual Property. We do IP services in all Arab countries, plus most of the Islamic countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, Pakistan, India. We have offices in more than 100 countries. I am not directly involved in the banking sector, but I work with the banks in the field of IP. We protect their trademark, their logos, and their mobile application. And we are serving most of the major Islamic banking in our region, in the Gulf region or Arab countries. Today, my presentation will be basically just clarifying what is intellectual property. I will focus on the trademarks and how it is connected to the banking sector or banking issues. To understand IP, It is identifying IP relationship with the companies and IP as a corporate identity. Just I will joke. For the intellectual property is a legal field that refers to creation in mind as musical, literary, and artistic work, innovation, simples, and high. And as my colleague said, now the innovation is the fuel of the 21st century. Everything now is about innovation. And the purpose of IP rights under IP law, the holder of one of these abstract properties has certain exclusive right to the creative work, in addition to encourage inventor to disclose their ideas, so the innovation can be based on such current technology. IP, intellectual property, includes trademark, patent, design, domain name, planet, variety, copyright, trade secret. I will focus my presentation on the trademark issue, which is related. For now, the most important thing, why do I need to protect my trademark, and what will happen if I did not register my trademark? What the worst thing that might happen? A trademark may consist of any signs capable of being distinctive, particularly words including personal names, design letters, or anything. So the most important thing of the trademark to be distinctive, not to be descriptive of the product or services. Just allow me to explain. All the trademark are connected to whether it is for services or for products. The trademark is classified according to NIST classification, 45 classes. So each class refers to certain product or service. For example, class 35 is the class for banking services and financial. Class 30 is for food and beverage. The importance of trademark to indicate the originality and source of the mark, to get exclusivity on the mark, stop infringement from others, make it as an asset and license opportunity. I'll talk about license opportunity later because this is most important. And the most important that I have my own trademark so I can license or allow to others to use it on specific terms. There's too many types of trademark, products mark, service mark, which I mentioned. Products mark is from class 1 to class 34, and service mark from class 35 to 45. Sound, image, now collective, but the most important is the first two, product mark and service mark. For example, logo mark, which contains logo, a special logo like BMW or Audi, or the trade dress, which combine many factors that combine one trademark. Even the sounds, like, for example, Harley Davidson bike, the sound of the bike is a trademark. Yes. Series of mark, when you have it contains many trademark as a combined one trademark. This is called series mark or position. Now, the most important when I want to create a product or service, how to choose this trademark. Your target audience, your geographical coverage, meaning, availability, and language. For example, very important to know the market. For example, at one time we had a client from Japan. He wanted to register a trademark in the Gulf region, but the meaning of the word in Japanese, in Arabic, it is offensive. It cannot be registered. For their language, it is normal, but in our language, it is offensive. We cannot register it. And the same may be in Russia. Some Russian words is not accepted in Arab countries, and vice versa. How to choose that trademark? The pronunciation should be easy to pronounce, especially when you target who is your customer. For example, if a trademark addressed to kids or teenagers, should be easy to pronounce. And make sure about the language barrier. Avoid generic terms like we cannot register trademark super white for cleaning materials, or we cannot register trademark like a fresh for any kind, or cold for beverage. Person names avoidance, of course, we cannot register person name as a trademark. Offensive, which I mentioned, and able to distinguish. I will not go in details into patent, but patent is the innovation and novelty mostly about for pharmaceutical companies or technology companies. They have to prevent their innovation by protecting a patent. Patent is, for example, protected for 20 years, and during this 20 years, they have the chance to give license or to get use of this patent. Industrial design, which like watches or any design, or 3D or 2D, whatever. Domain name is very important now, especially with this mobile application and especially with the internet technology. All domain name must be registered. There's a special registration department, and you have to register the company name, whether .com or .org or whatever, should be also protected. Country code, language. Copyright, which include legal terms describing rights given to the creators for their literary and artistic work, books, novel, play, musical works, everything must be protected. I'll just skip here. IP for growing business, timing and phase of registration. Just allow, if you want to use a trademark, you have to make sure to register the trademark before launching a product or service, because the registration process normally takes from 2 to 3 years until it is registered. So the first step is to register the trademark in your home country. Once you have the registration certificate, you go abroad in all other countries to get the registration. And depends from one country to another. Some countries take 1 year, 2 years, and some African countries take 5 years until trademark to be registered. In other countries, only 3, 4 months. So it depends in which country you want to protect the trademark. And as I mentioned, there is 3 stages in the registration process. First, you file the application. It should be examined by the registrar. After examination, they issue like something called notice of acceptance. Then the trademark is published in official gazette. There's opposition period. If nobody file oppose this trademark, then you will get the registration certificate, which is for 10 years. And at that stage, you can legally use the trademark and protect it from any infringement. I will skip building value. Building value for IP rights. Now, trademarks are originally created to be associated with the owner of the mark, so the mark reference to the source of these goods. Customer trust with the products could be the ultimate objective of brand names. The meaning of this that when the consumer wants to buy a certain product, when he chooses this trademark, he refers it to the quality and to the source of the trademark. And that's why always this trademark is associated with the customer trust. And all these feelings do not come for free, and the more customers attached to the brand, the more value of the trademark and design. For example, when you go to supermarket, when you want to buy some food products, you always make sure of the brand before the price. Some people get the price, but it is the most important to get what is this trademark, what is the brand, and to be associated with this quality. I want to just step now. I want to just focus on the legal issue about filing trademark, protecting trademark. The legal procedure, as I mentioned, during the registration process, anyone can file oppose. For example, if you have a company and you found that one company tried to imitate your trademark by changing a few letters and try to register themselves. So at this stage, you can file opposition and stop the registration process, especially because too many companies or small companies, especially I don't want to mention some specific countries, but try to make use of a well-known trademark, change a few letters, and try to take a copy of a well-known trademark to make use, especially in the cloth sector. So you can file opposition. Cancellation after 5 years, you can file cancellation of trademark, cancellation for non-use, It is not logic that a company get registration of trademark and prevent others from using it if they are not using this trademark. So within 5 years, you can file cancellation if the trademark is not used. Infringement usually not register trademark or before the criminal courts. You can file like infringement case if a company taking use of your trademark, unfair competition usually for not registered trademark, and you can file it at any time at the court. As I mentioned, I am not directly in the banking sector, but with our experience with working with major banks in the Gulf region, for example, Rajhi, Baraka Group, Qatar Islamic Banking, Arab Bank in Jordan. Here are some of the key factors which relate Islamic banking with intellectual property. As my colleague Mr. Muhammad mentioned, Sharia compliant financial products. Banks often develop innovative financial products and service adhering for Islamic principle, such as marhaba, murabaha, musharaka, sukuk, these terms in Arabic, which equivalent to the commercial banking sector. And the software, now everybody is using software banking. You can use, these software must be also protected. I want to skip one paragraph. Yeah. Overall, the intellectual property plays a crucial role for safeguarding the innovative ideas. For example, these are the major Islamic banking in our region, which are also our client, Rajhi Bank, Kuwait Housing Bank, Qatar Islamic Bank. All these banks are the major banks in the Arab region. Now, speaking about the difference between the normal commercial bank and the Islamic banking for related to intellectual property. For example, Islamic banking term, murabaha, which is the equivalent international banking credit sale or cost plus financing. Mubadara, musharaka, equivalent international banking joint venture. So for each Arabic terms, there's the equivalent for the international banking. Ijara, for example, a leasing contract where the leaser lease and assist to lease for equivalent international banking lease finance. And just I want to make experience. In Jordan, 85% of Jordan individuals prefer to deal with Islamic banking on the principle of halal and haram. The idea that everyone want to deal the bank, they prefer to go to Islamic banking. And that's why since 2004, all the major banks switched to Islamic banking. And here are all the terms, sukuk, takaful, which high. Allow me just to end this session with this paragraph, that the intellectual property rights by financial institutions expanded, and the mere branding of slogan names, culture, colors to the development of software, investment in fintech. And for this reason, financial institutions also need to secure their intellectual property rights to protect their investment and brands. And now, these changes have encouraged many banks to rebrand and move away from the traditional long names to adopt smarter and more catchy trademark while continuing to serve the brand promise and the purpose. Whether it be City, Fab, smart branding represent the first step of an institution drive towards innovation. Wordmarks such as National, First, Trust, and abbreviation usually face trademark opposition. And in short, when you want to choose a trademark, it should be not descriptive of the product and to be distinctive.
Mr. Jamhour, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Our time is... Время нашей сессии неумолимо подходит.
The time of our session is coming to an end. Thank you for a very interesting presentation. And I have a small question.
Сейчас
Right now, in the Russian banking community and Russian economic community, there is some moderate and keen interest towards Islamic financial instruments such as Sukuk and Tisit. In terms of development of these derivatives, these financial instruments and other Islamic bonds, is there any specifics we should note and which will allow the meaning of these financial instruments for other countries, for other audiences, for instance, former CIS countries or Russia or BRICS countries? How can we improve them? What should we note?
Maybe the most important part is how to choose when you want to do the branding, or if you want to switch from normal bank to Islamic banking, just to try to avoid any descriptive terms or any short terms which related to the service, and make it sure with the audience about each product and what is the difference with the commercial, normal commercial banks.
Mr. Shahid Khan?
So, if I understand your question correctly, you spoke about sukuks, and as an instrument, what Russia should do.
Itisna maybe. Itisna.
Sorry, come again?
Itisna or something like that.
Istisna.
It's Istisna, yeah.
Okay.
Istisna.
So the important thing here, especially for Russian institutions, when they want to structure a solution, is the acceptability of that structure, the fatwa itself, which is acceptable for institutions in the GCC, Far East, and everywhere. There are certain nuances which is acceptable in certain countries, not acceptable others. So to have first of all, the structure. So what you mentioned is a form of how do you do it's a mode of financing. What you mentioned, istisna, blah, 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 mudaraba, murabaha, ijara, all that stuff. So the mode of financing which is being used, the underlying structure, the fatwa that is received, fatwa is the religious edict by the religious scholar which says, yes, this is Sharia compliant, yes or not. That becomes very, very important, that it is widespreadly accepted. That is important as well. The underlying asset or the business. So these are a few things that they should keep in mind before venturing into that form of an instrument to raise financing.
Шукран.
Okay.
И под завершение нашей сессии
And to conclude our session, Mr. Ignatiev is going to tell you a little about infrastructural projects and their interrelation to Islamic banking and finance.
Good morning, dear colleagues. And I won't tell you a lot about infrastructure projects because I think you have heard of them, but I noticed that today we have the first major day of our forum, and thanks to Interfax and to participants of this session, personally you and the audience and experts in the presidium, I would like to thank you. And actually you all started with the basic things, with the presence of money in the system, and it makes no sense to discuss it further. Still, first you need to have money, and then you should think about other things. I think it's a very important topic, and for dealer, group of companies, any mechanisms and sources of financing infrastructure projects are important, and we cooperate quite closely in Eastern region, in Asian region. We have a lot of negotiations, And we see how international logistical corridors and routes are being developed. And we can see that there is higher cooperation between Russia and Islamic states. It has grown by 30%. And our business represents Islamic states as strategic partners. And this is based on cooperation with them. And one of the priorities in our cooperation is international logistic routes, including north-south route. And it's a serious story. And we had a number of meetings and negotiations. And here we talk about the implementation of this project, expanding the capacity of this route and involving the technologies which we mentioned today, involving expertise and cooperation with the key partners who have competences in logistics and transportation. And we continue the dialogue with the Arab Emirates, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, representatives of the banking system, the consortium. This is important for us. And we can talk a lot about this, but first I would like to underline that the more precise expertise which was given by previous speakers and the evaluation of what is happening and the changes in the legislation in using and attracting funds for serious investment projects were presented very well. So I would like to thank everyone, and I wish good luck to all of us. We have the opening of a wonderful forum, and the Kazan is my motherland. Thank you very much. I would like to thank all members of our session. And I think that we managed to present a very interesting and promising topic of interaction of Russian financial institutions and international financial institutions, and the topic of the development of Islamic banking. Starting from the August of 2023, some legal entities of the Russian Federation have the experiment under the legislation of the Russian Federation on introduction of these tools, including Chechnya, Bashkortostan, Tatarstan. So just they are being involved in this financial experiment. So we have a serious and promising prospects. And I think it's also linked to the fact that the Islamic banking system is continuously developing and improving. And we can see the improvement of the system in terms of internal development and motivation. And we can see continuous increase of capitals and revenues of the financial organizations involved in Islamic banking. And also the total idea of Islamic banking, and it implies a lot of prospects for all stakeholders from organizations and countries. And as some of the speakers mentioned, religious basis is not vital here. Actually, it's mostly the interest to the development. And I think it's one of the global trends in the development of the financial system, mutual partnership, financing, and many other aspects. So I would like to thank all members, and I hope you will have promising interaction in this activity. And further, we will discuss different stages of the Islamic banking development. I think it would be unjust to mention, not to mention the successful fintech, Islamic fintech projects in Russia. and though they're not present here, actually there are 200 different Islamic fintech projects. I know 2 successful projects in Russia, and I think it's important to mention them. The first one is the payments service for labor immigrants, Finance Pay, and it started its work with receiving halal certificates and Sharia law compliance certificates, and this service still exists. And the second project is not a project which poses itself as an Islamic project, but though the founders of this project were motivated by the principles and the ideas of Sadaqah. This is platform Tuba, which is, I think, the most successful and major projects for charitable activities in Russia. And most of the projects don't even concern Islamic regions, but still they all meet Sharia law principles. And it was promoted by a Russian major mufti. And I can say that this is currently only 1% of all successful projects in Russia, but still I think we can believe that we're a digital country, but for this we should have at least 20 successful projects, and I hope in 20 years we will be discussing that 15 successful projects in Islamic fintech have emerged. And I hope, with Salam Baraka. Thank you very much.